Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyde, taking a look at tonight's 15-game slate. Pitching options are dreadful. It had us talking more about NBA than MLB right now before. After coming off last night and all the aces that still didn't do well, but coming into this is just someone took a massive dump of pitchers on this slate, and that was it.
Well, it is Friday the 13th, so I mean, that probably has something to do with it. I think it's interesting that so far from what I've seen, like on Twitter and whatnot, like the popular pitching options are going to be terrible as far as like safety goes. Like everyone's talking about like Walker Buehler and Madison Bumgarner and Thor as pitching options, and I just want to scream, like, are you guys just, what is wrong with you people? Like these two, like the Mets and the Dodgers are notoriously bad for the way they handle their pitchers. Both these guys are coming off the DL, and you really want to risk that in cash? Like, if that's how it's going to be, I'm just going to be like taking head to heads all freaking day long and just like taking all these cheap pitching options against like an 11K Thor that may go 5 innings and is also for the Mets. So like his arm could actually be dislocated right now and we wouldn't know.
Yeah, the safety of the top tier pitchers and top tier should be put in quotes is not fun tonight. You and I were talking, it was when we looked and go, oh, all right, I'll play Nathan Eovaldi. It's not on a 15-game slate. If we're looking and that's our first thought to go with, that says a lot.
Yeah, when Nate Eovaldi and Jake Odorizzi are two guys that you're considering on a 15-game slate as like SP1s, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's gonna be chaos. Of course, we do have a lot of high-scoring offenses that are likely going to be taken upon us here. First game in Baltimore, we got Texas coming in. Alex Cobb taking on Cole Hamels. Despite Baltimore being awful against lefties, I just still have no interest in Cole Hamels here.
I don't know how you can have interest in Cole Hamels. I mean, the dude's given up like 14 earned runs over his last 10 2/3 innings. Like his last 3 starts, he has an 11.81 ERA. And he's in a good hitting environment and he's freaking terrible. And like, I don't know how you can have interest in either one of these pitchers tonight. Like both these guys are garbage.
Yeah, they really are. Like Hamels is a guy I don't mind taking some guys against. I like Machado, but I really like Danny Valencia in this spot. As a guy who's a cheaper option, hits lefties well. He's kind of the main guys I'm looking at. Just I don't know if he'll need all the value here on the slate, but I do like him in this spot. I don't think a lot of people will go there.
Yeah, you may not need the value, but like you mentioned Machado, he's just raked against lefties this season. 223 ISO, 347 WOBA. Hits the cutter pretty darn well, which is a pitch that Hamels is throwing about 27.5% of the time. He's got a 371 WOBA, 224 ISO against it. You have guys like Jonathan Scope, who's been pretty darn good recently. Not that great against lefties this season, but good numbers against the cutter. Good numbers against lefties dating back to last season. And then Danny Valencia, a guy that you mentioned, obviously in a really good spot here against Hamels, 212 ISO, 353 WOBA dating back to last season. But guys like Mancini he's really cheap on FanDuel. I don't hate like Joey Rickard, who's a guy who never has a ton of power, but decent on base guy. There's some guys to like in this lineup, even someone like Mark Trumbo in that cleanup spot.
Yeah, I like taking some shots here. They're all kind of these cheap one-off power bats for me. I don't mind Machado as well. Like you mentioned, guy's been just mashing lefties, and he's your only real expensive option. I don't hate the stack here either, maybe working in a couple of Coors bats because it is really cheap.
Yeah, I'm always disappointed when I stack the Orioles. Sunny gray day. But like I definitely don't hate doing it in tournaments and like pairing them with like a Coors stack or one of these other very popular stacks, because you're going to get the Orioles really low owned. I don't necessarily think I would do it as if I was just building one lineup, but if you're building multiple, I would definitely get like a Baltimore stack in there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Other side of this one, Alex Cobb basically been almost the same to both sides of the plate this year. 385 a little bit of both, over 200 ISO to both sides. Cobb, low strikeout guy. I don't mind some bats here. I like Shin-Soo Choo, Norman Mazara, René Odor, some of these big power guys. Gallo, of course. It's kind of where I'm looking. but I'm not crazy high on him either.
There's a few guys I like. I love Chu, who's just been ridiculous this season. And against righties, he's got a 253 ISO, 409 WOBA so far this year. We know this is a park that's pretty good for lefties, so I really do like him. I don't hate Elvis Andrews in this spot. And then someone like Robinson Chirinos behind the dish, if he makes the lineup, very, very, very good option. He's just raked against righties so far this season with the 214 ISO. And against Cubs, four-seam fastball, 318 ISO, 451 WOBA, 42% hard contact rate. There's a decent chance he goes yard tonight.
Yeah, and got a good park here, especially for these lefty bats, but even for the righties as well.
Yeah, and don't overlook Joey Gallo, 595 ISO against that four-seam fastball. That's Cobb likes to throw. Unfortunately, it's like a 66% contact rate, so hopefully he can just like make contact with one, because if he does, it's probably going to land in like freaking the ocean.
Were you trying to figure out like a Baltimore landmark and then was like, oh, I just got to go with the ocean?
I was like, I'm drawing a blank here. I was drawing a blank. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. So, and then I was trying to remember it's like the Atlantic Ocean. So I just, yeah.
Oh man, it's that Oklahoma geography over there.
I can name all these random landmarks for Oklahoma, but I can't give you anything around freaking the Baltimore area.
Next game here, we got Milwaukee and Pittsburgh. Nick Kingham versus Junior Guerra. Milwaukee been slumping a little bit here. Any interest in pitching in this spot?
I don't hate taking a shot on Kingham. Decent strikeout potential here. I mean, he's striking out 22.2% of batters this season. Milwaukee, as you mentioned, has kind of been slumping a little bit, and we know they're in a lineup that strikes out a decent amount. I mean, 24% strikeout rate as far as that projected lineup goes. I definitely don't hate taking a shot, especially at his price tag on DraftKings at only 7,900.
Yeah, he's definitely got some strikeout upside. Definitely a GPP guy. Like you said, this Milwaukee team, scary on paper here, but they do offer some strikeout upside. Obviously I think lefties do scare me here a little bit. We've seen Kingham 262 ISO, 345 WOBA, but decent ballpark. And just overall, like I don't expect a lot of scoring in this game in general.
I kind of expect it from the Pittsburgh side, more so than the Milwaukee side. I do have a little bit of concern with some of these lefties, the Thames, the Yelich, the Shaws, but I don't know that it's enough to scare me off of Kingham in tournaments.
Yeah, Guerra's the guy on the other side. 23% strikeout rate this year, 9.4% walk rate, does allow a lot of hard contact. He's always a guy who seemingly kind of just gets by, despite not having great stuff. I don't mind taking some Pittsburgh bats here. I like the cheaper outfielders like Dickerson and Polanco. Those are kind of the two that I'm looking at for their price tags.
Yeah, it's pretty much those two guys, and it's the guys that have been hitting pretty well of late. You have Starling Marte, actually, who's been hitting really well over the last 2 weeks, 399 WOBA, Corey Dickerson, 384 WOBA, Polanco, 383 WOBA. Those, I think, are the three guys that I have the most interest in, but I don't hate someone like an Elias Diaz if he gets in the lineup as well.
No, decent catching option there. Moving on, Washington and New York. Noah Syndergaard taking on Tanner Roark. I don't have any interest in either of these two pitchers.
Syndergaard's going to be popular. I guarantee it. And it's going to be one of those nights where like you're probably going to tilt because they're going to pull him after 5 innings, or they're going to say he's going to have a 90 pitch limit. And you're like, oh, that's good enough. He has some strikeout potential. And then they pull him at like 75 pitches. Like I can't do it. I can't recommend doing it. If you want to roll him in cash because he's going to be super popular and it's not going to kill you if he doesn't have a good game, because like 94% of the field has him, take that risk. I just don't see it as a risk you need to take tonight.
Yeah, I agree there. And it's not like Syndergaard's been burning, the upside this year. It's been a lot of 5-6 inning games where he's allowed a couple earned runs because the defense has let him down, as you've numerously pointed out throughout the year. likelihood is a win here, not that great. I don't think you're looking at like 25 plus DK point upside. And, I think he's lucky if he gets to 20.
Yeah, and I just for 11K on DraftKings, it's not something that I'd be willing to do. Like 10K on FanDuel is a little more palatable, but still, like it's not for me tonight. I
Yeah.
get it; it makes sense, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. And, I'm not necessarily picking on him here either. A lot of these bats I think are a little bit too expensive. And I do expect Syndergaard to kind of throw well, but I don't expect him to just go terribly deep.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like 80 pitches is probably the max for him, and you're going to need him to get the win, throw those 80 pitches, and get a decent amount of strikeouts, and not give up any earned runs for him to hit value. I don't hate taking a shot on like a Adams or a Soto or something like that if you think Thor's going to be really popular in tournaments. But yeah, I'm not too terribly intrigued by picking on him here.
No, I get all these price tags did take a drop though. Jesus. Like Turner 4.2, Soto 4.2.
Yeah, Turner's a little bit interesting. Some stolen base upside.
Yeah, Thor's not a guy who holds runners on well. Mets side of things here. It's for me, it's just too many lefties in this lineup. If for some reason they don't like Velasquez, if they roll out something similar to that lineup the other night, then sure, I think Rourke is fine. But overall, I just hate taking Rourke against lefty-heavy lineups.
Yeah, if Rourke was in a little bit better recent form, I would have a little bit more interest in him, but he's just been putrid recently. Like the dude's out here like shaving his head and changing his mechanics and all this stuff, trying to like fix whatever's wrong, and he's still got like a 7.41 ERA over his last 3 starts and only 3 starts, only 14 strikeouts. So he was a guy I almost put in the pitching article just as like a tournament flyer because I love taking just about anybody versus the Mets. 8,700 on DraftKings. In tournaments, I guess he's down to like 6,800 on FanDuel. That might be worth taking a shot over on FanDuel if you get a few less lefties in that lineup.
Yeah, if we get like one of the outfielders sitting out, I think that's fine. I'm not tremendously worried with the Jose Reyeses and Dominic Smiths of the world here. It's the Nemo, Cabrera, Conforto guys that I have the most interest in here. They're all relatively cheap. I know Conforto obviously hasn't hit for a ton of power, but Conforto, 300 ISO against that sinker, Cabrera 243, Nemo 262. Like those are some decent numbers here, and we've seen Rourke over the last year, really struggle with left-handed bats.
Yeah, I don't like. I would look at the guys that hit sinkers really well. Brandon Nimmo, 406 WOBA, 262 ISO, only 40% ground ball rate against it. Asdrubal Cabrera also hits that pitch really well. Those would be a couple one-offs that I would maybe look at. And then Conforto hits it pretty well too. But again, as we talked about, not hitting as well this season.
Those are the only real options here for the Mets.
Yeah.
So, moving on, Toronto, Boston, Ryan Baruki. Rick Porcello did my best effort there. Rick Porcello, 9,800 on DK tonight. I know he made it into your pitching article kind of by probably default.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I kind of noted like he's a guy, he's been pretty consistent this season, not getting a lot of like, no one's really talking about how consistent he has been for the most part. Like, I don't hate him in the spot. Like, we know this outside of Justin Smoke, this Blue Jays offense is pretty darn terrible. Like, Smoke's been ridiculous over the past 2 weeks, but after that, it's like nobody else is really doing much of anything. Outside of like, you take away the Nationals and the Angels outing, like most of his outings have been pretty good. He's just giving up like maybe 2 earned runs, but he's still notching some decent strikeouts. So I'm okay with taking him here as like an SP1.
Yeah, I don't mind him at these prices. It's a guy who's going to go later into the game as he usually does. He's an innings eater. Going to give up a run or two, but I mean, he's basically averaged a strikeout per inning against Toronto this year in 2 starts. Guy who's throwing that slider about 26% of the time this year. Not a huge whiff rate on it, but decent enough against, this Toronto team that does struggle against him. Yeah, I don't mind him here. I think out of the guys basically over 9K, he's my favorite.
Yeah, he's like outside. If you take away the 2 guys that are, coming off the DL, And then you take away Madison Bumgarner, who we'll get to why I'm not on him tonight. Like, he's pretty much the only guy that I have any kind of like faith in him being safe for cash games.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do think if you want to get contrarian, it's playing like the Teoscar Hernandez and Justin Smokes here.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Smoke, dude's been absolutely raking over the last 2 weeks, like a 500 ISO and 493 WOBA. It's pretty impressive numbers. I don't hate him as a one-off if you're not going to play Porcello.
Yep, with you there. Other side of this one, you get the lefty on the hill. Guy who is predominantly just sinker changeup, and the sinker is not a guy. It's not a pitch that's generating a ton of ground balls. I don't mind Boston here, per usual.
Yeah, I think they're going to be popular, mostly because like people look at the slate and see Ryan Baraki and be like, "Who the heck is this guy? Like, where'd they find this guy at?" Like, he hasn't been terrible in his starts so far this season. Like, he hasn't not a ton of strikeout upside or anything like that. But if you look at the numbers, 289 WOBA to righties, 243 to lefties, not a lot of power. I don't expect that to continue. I mean, still giving up some fly balls and whatnot. You want to take a shot, it is really tough to overlook like Betts and JD Martinez, considering how hot they've been over the past month. But I don't know that I may go too heavy on this team tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the ownership wise, they're always kind of, a little bit of a downgrade in tournaments just because, when you're getting Betts and all these guys sometimes at 15, 20%, it kind of is a buzzkill. I do like Steve Pearce quite a bit if he finds his way in the lineup. I know he's day to day, but a guy who's hitting over 400 over the last 2 weeks has just mashed lefties this season and at times in his career as well. But I mean, 271 ISO, 424 WOBA, projected to hit cleanup as he has been with Boston when lefties on the hill. He's only 4K.
Yeah, he's a guy that I'm pretty interested in, and we're gonna get a weird Boston lineup because they just put Benintendi on the bereavement list.
Yeah, they called up Sam Travis, but you still might see like Swihart or I don't even know who else would be in there.
Yeah, my guess would probably be Swihart.
Yeah, it could be an ugly lineup, but that kind of makes him less stackable, I feel.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, it would be like Betts, Martinez, Pierce would be the guys that I would look the most at, and out of those guys, it's pretty much Pierce that I have the most interest in, just because I can get him for cheaper than the other guys, with much less ownership. Like, I don't know that I want to eat a ton of ownership at 6,100 for Betts and 5,800 for Martinez over on DraftKings.
Yeah. So moving on, New York and Cleveland. Shane Bieber take on Domingo German. Matchups here for me are just kind of enough to kind of push me off both, especially Bieber, especially with his numbers against lefties.
Yeah, I'm definitely off with him in this spot. I would be definitely interested in taking a couple of these lefties against him. You have Didi hitting righties really well this season, 251 ISO. You have Greg Bird, 270 ISO. Even someone like Neil Walker, Brett Gardner, I guess, hit homer last night. Decent spot for those guys. I would be looking at the lefties for sure.
Hey, sir, show Gardner some respect. That was 2 homers last night.
Oh, 2 homers. I must have missed one of the notifications.
It's the lefties here for me, those guys that you mentioned. I really like Hicks in this spot. But you mentioned like Neil Walker, Greg Bird, all these guys, Gardner, Gregorius, like whatever lefties in that lineup I'm going to have interest in.
Yeah, Hicks is an interesting one-off. We have Bieber throwing that 4-seam 92-mile-an-hour fastball about 57% of the time. Hicks has a 357 WOBA and a 200 ISO against it, 90% contact rate. So he's a pretty interesting one-off, I think.
And for the record, Bieber, 422 WOBA, 236 ISO, 56% hard contact to lefties so far.
Yeah, those aren't good numbers.
Struggling. So anytime you get a lefty in the lineup against him, he's always in play.
Yeah, I wonder who would have better numbers against lefties, Justin Bieber or Shane Bieber?
Ooh, it's tough. I don't know. I'm going to play the Justin Bieber narrative. He just got engaged. So, yeah, ride the hot streak there.
I'm a little bit worried that you actually know he just got engaged.
Twitter, man, the algorithms that shows up on my timeline.
Yeah. What are you looking at on YouTube that the algorithm like shows up on your Twitter timeline? Do you have a Justin Bieber channel on YouTube?
I took a deep dive into Shane Bieber one night and watched like 30 minutes of highlights. That's what it was. So
yeah, sure. Blame it on the algorithm.
Cleveland side of this one, we've seen German struggle a little bit with lefties as well here. 257 ISO. He's a guy who throws, a lot of junk, a lot of curve, changeup. It's just too high of a contact team here for me to get any strikeout upside, I feel.
Yeah, I felt the same way that with German the first time he faced the Indians and he struck out 9 of them in 6 innings. Like the biggest concern I have is if he's throwing that curveball a bunch, his team does not hit curveballs very well. Like Michael Brantley and Jose Ramirez have like the best contact rates on the team and they're hovering right around the 80% mark, and nobody in that projected lineup has an ISO over 0.189, and that's Edwin Encarnacion. He's interesting from a tournament perspective at that price. I wouldn't say no to rolling him out in a couple of lineups, but I also don't know that I want to stack too heavily against him.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of a wash thing for me. Like he's been slowing down a little bit. It's also the second time in Cleveland that we'll see him. Yeah, I don't have any interest at these Indians price tags. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
So. Moving on here, Philly, Miami, Jake Arrieta taking away in Chen. I don't mind a couple bats in this one from the Philly side.
I don't, but at the same time, I'm not like jumping to roster them because Wei and Chen has been really good at home this season. Like if you look, where is it in my notes? 189 ERA at home. It's pretty solid.
Because everyone flies out to the track.
Yeah. That is pretty much it. So like I guess if you really want to get a couple of guys in here, you can. I mean, like someone like Carlos Santana, really cheap. Caesar not terribly priced at 4,200. Reese is 46. I'm probably out on that, but I think most of my interest just comes from like Arrieta, and then I'm passing on the rest of this game.
Like I like Hoskins. I don't feel that price is all that bad. It is up a little bit. I do like Santana here as like a contrarian option. Like if there was pitching on this slate that was expensive, I would have interest in Aaron out there. But yeah, I mean, there's probably better options here, but I do like Reese.
I mean, at that price, like I can get Cargo for 4,700. I can get Will Myers against Tyler Chatwood for a couple hundred more. Get Ian Desmond for the same price. I just feel like there's better ways to spend that money. You can get Joey Gallo for cheaper.
True.
So yeah.
You said you had some interest in Arrieta here.
Yeah, just because, I mean, again, we're looking for guys that are priced fairly, that have a little bit of safety. Like, I know Arrieta has just been a freaking roller coaster this season. He's not been good on the road, but, like, this Marlins offense, not very good. And I wrote up Arrieta in the pitching article. Like, I feel like this is a pretty good spot for him if you factor in the fact that they're, like, the 26th ranked offense in baseball. He's a pretty decent favorite, good ballpark. Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Are you in on him cash, or is this just a GPP play?
I think at that price, I think I'm okay with him in cash.
Oh, you have a little bit more of a stomach than I do. But then again, it's probably the same for every pitcher on this slate.
8,900 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel. Like, that's not terrible for what Arrieta has been.
Yeah, I guess. I don't hate it. I'm going to probably be going a little bit other directions. I think I'm just kind of locked into Eovaldi in that range, a little bit over him, but I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, I feel like he's a guy that can get you 20 fantasy points in a win.
Yeah, certainly. I don't have any interest in picking on him. He's been a ground ball guy. That's about it.
Be like maybe a Bohr one-off or something, but like I don't know why you'd want to target that offense too heavily unless you just needed someone in that price range.
Yeah. Arizona, Atlanta next here. Anibal Sanchez versus Zach Godley. I don't have any interest in pitching here, do you?
No. Like I'm hesitant on like Anibal Sanchez just because there are some strikeouts there, and he's only 7,800. But yeah, I don't know that I can really. I don't know.
I don't hate it. I'm not going to say no to it in GPPs.
No, I don't think I would either. Like, especially this is going to be a lineup with a lot of lefties. I think like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projected lefties in that lineup, depending on who's behind the dish. And against lefties this season, 26.9% strikeout rate, 280 WOBA, 149 ISO. Fly ball is a little bit up at 38%, but the hard contact's not really there. At that price, like it is a little bit interesting in tournaments.
Yeah, I think he's a fine GPP play on this slate. Like you said, there's strikeout upside within this lineup. I mean, projected lineup 23.7% strikeout rate against righties this year. They're getting out of Coors yesterday, traveling all the way to Atlanta. It's not usually that great of a spot. Hannibal's just a guy who throws a lot of crap, just a lot of crap, and I think that can give Diamondbacks trouble here.
Yeah, it makes it really tough to profile hitters against him because he just throws literally. If there's a pitch that has some sort of classification, Anibal Sanchez has thrown it at least once this season. Like it's ridiculous, dude's just. I feel like he's just like has like a random generator in his head that tells him just to throw X pitch every single time, and it's like a different pitch. Like I don't know how you know that many freaking pitch grips. That's ridiculous.
I don't know. But I guess if you spent this much time in the majors and with some of the guys he's pitched with, you pick some stuff up.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, I don't really have interest picking on him here. Like, yeah, I guess if you want to take a one-off here or there with some of the power bats, it's fine. Like Peralta, Pollock, Lamb, Goldie. But I think there's better ways to go.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I don't necessarily hate like a Ketel Marte at his price, 3,700. That's pretty fair. John Jay, 3,700. A couple of these cheaper like contact bats, I think, are in okay spots.
Other side of this one, Zach Godley on the hill. Guy's been pitching. He's been up and down a lot this year. He's struggling with some lefties, giving up a lot of hard contact to righties. I don't know here. I don't know. It's kind of a wash for me, I guess, in this spot too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a wash for me as well. Just because the Braves are still not really priced where I want to spend that money on them when I can spend in better places. I guess someone like Markakis isn't terribly expensive at like 4,500. Acuna 4,200. That's an interesting name to keep an eye on. Like Acuna is someone that I would probably consider as like a one-off. I just wish they put him higher up in the order.
Yeah, projected at 7th there. I don't mind like a Freeman one-off. He's got really good numbers against curveballs, 436 WOBA, 321 ISO, 78% contact rate. Do you want to go there, pay up at first base? I think he'll be overlooked.
Yeah, I agree there.
So, Kansas City, Chicago, Brad Keller, James Shields, one of the higher projected totals on the slate here for this game. Two of some of the bottom offenses as well, so it's hard to trust. I don't really want to target Keller here. Like, I don't understand actually the 5 runs.
I don't understand this dude's just like stat profile at all. It's just like the most pedestrian blah, like 13% strikeout rate.
It's the Trisket box of like pitching. It's so boring.
Maybe even wheat thins. Like, wheat thins are more boring than Triscuits, aren't they?
I like wheat thins over Triscuits if I'm comparing the two.
Interesting.
It's a little bit thinner. The Triscuits, like, it's heavy, man. It's wheat. It's like that one of those mini wheat cereals, just in cracker form.
So you hate Triscuits and love Justin Bieber.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't want anything to do with Keller or the White Sox offense in this spot.
No, I really don't either. He's been a decent ground ball guy. I can't get excited about like Moncada or Brady or Palka right now.
No, I can't either.
So, Kansas City, James Shields on the hill. I'm okay taking some shots with some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Dudas, the Perez, the Moustakas. I think these are interesting names here.
Yeah, I hate picking on James Shields and being consistently disappointed by doing so. But you take these guys out of Kansas City and you put them in a good ballpark, and you have Moustakas that hits righties really well, 262 ISO against them. Lucas Duda obviously does as well. Don't even hate like a shot on Alex Gordon. I'm looking right now. It hasn't Royals. Hasn't Bonifacio been pretty decent over the last couple of weeks? Yeah, he's been. I mean, he's been okay. 321 WOBA, 341 on base percentage. I guess if you're stacking and you want to get some exposure to like a cheap outfielder, he's someone you could look at.
Yeah, I don't mind him at all. Yeah, it's basically kind of those front 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah.
Detroit and Houston. You got Dallas Keuchel taking on Mike Fiers. Fiers revenge game.
Could be.
I don't like Keuchel this year. Like I've been done with him for maybe like 2 months now.
Yeah, he's a guy I think is might garner some ownership in that price range, and I just don't want to deal with it. Like I know he doesn't give up a lot of power. I mean, he's mostly a ground ball guy, but like I think this Tigers offense that you have a decent amount of bats in this lineup that hit lefties pretty well. I mean, you have Castellanos, the 47 WOBA against them. You have Candelario, 358 WOBA against them. You have John Hicks, a 400 WOBA against them. You have Nico Goodrum, a 384 WOBA against them. You have Jose Iglesias, 366 WOBA against them. And then you have lefty masher James McCann in there too. Like this Tigers offense might be a little bit interesting to look at in tournaments.
Yeah, I think so. If third base wasn't loaded, I feel like I'd really like Candelario here tonight. I like his numbers against sinkers, 408, WOBA 225 ISO, 40% hard contact rate, only a 42% ground ball rate. Like I would have a lot of interest in him. I just think there's probably like maybe 4 or 5 other third base options I'd rather use.
Unfortunately, yeah, third base is pretty loaded if you're playing on a site like FanDuel where you can get a couple of them, or Fantasy Draft where you can get like
5.
There you go. But like at 3,400 on DraftKings, if you're not playing Nolan Arenado, it's a pretty good price for Candelario.
Yeah, I like him. And I always see Castellanos do just mashes lefties. Those are 2 interesting names. And I know James McCann hasn't showed it this year, but expected WOBA over 450. Hard contact still fine. I wouldn't mind him. He's, how much? 3,100 behind the dish tonight.
Yeah, and then you have Hicks, 3,600.
Yeah, so there's some options here for Detroit.
Yeah, definitely.
Houston side of things here, you got Fiers on the hill. Guys, a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact. To really both sides of the plate here. I don't mind going here. It's still with kind of the cheaper back half guys, though.
Yeah, I can agree with that, although
Bregman.
Yeah. Dude's been just ridiculous. And he's hitting righties really well this season, 219 ISO, 372 WOBA. And against that fastball that Fiers is throwing, 406 WOBA, 323 ISO, 95% contact rate. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. I don't mind like the Reddicks and Gaddis and Marwin Gonzalez is here either.
Yeah, Marwin's actually got really good numbers against that fastball too. Where does DraftKings have him now?
He was first base, outfield.
Now.
I think he's shortstop on. I like him a lot on FanDuel because I think he's still shortstop.
Yeah, first base, outfield on DraftKings, and he's 2,900. 2,900 on FanDuel. Yeah, that's a pretty sweet price for a guy that owns a 432 WOBA, a 308 ISO, and a 96% contact rate against those really low velocity four-seam fastballs.
Yeah, I don't mind a Houston stack here, and like maybe starting with like a Bregman.
Yeah, I don't mind doing it with like guys like Bregman, and you're not doing it in order, but like Bregman, Marwin, maybe a Gaddis or a Reddick.
Yeah,
you skip the Springers and Altuves, who are good bats. Not saying they're bad players or bad options tonight. It's just I think the other guys are a little bit cheaper and not going to garner as much ownership.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I just think for their power upside, where it's been against righties this year, like they just haven't been worth those price tags.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Moving on, Tampa Bay, Minnesota. This is the pitching duel of the matchup here. Jake Odorizzi take on Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi's been very good. I think he's had one bad start, but for the most part, he's been really solid. That fastball velocity's been excellent, and gets a Twins lineup that's just not that good.
No, and he's definitely interesting, especially like if you look at his price tag across the industry. Really cheap, decent strikeout stuff. Most teams do struggle against that super high velocity fastball. I mean, he's touching like 97 miles an hour. Staying ahead in counts, like that's really important for him. 24% strikeout rate. Like I like him in the spot. Like you get a couple guys like Brian Dozier who has like a 426 WOBA and a 300 ISO over the last 2 weeks, and then you have like Jorge Polanco and Eddie Rosario that have some decent numbers against kind of what he's throwing. But for the most part, I think he's in line for a pretty good night tonight, and I do like him.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he's limited hard contact to both sides of the plate. He's been fairly solid against lefties. I mean, holding to it through 31 WOBA, which was always kind of the concern with the Eovaldi before. Ground ball rate right around 49-50%. Like the strikeouts have been there. Yeah, I like him in this spot.
Yeah, I do too. And on the flip side, like I like the other pitcher in this matchup.
Yeah, Odorizzi gets his former team here. It's still a Rays team that's striking out quite a bit. And Odorizzi hasn't been bad. His form's been pretty solid of late.
Yeah, I mean, what has he got? He's like over his last 3 starts, 106 ERA, 22 strikeouts, through 6 scoreless against Baltimore. It's Baltimore, but still 6 scoreless innings. Got a decent strikeout rate this season, 24.2%. Struggling with lefties a little bit, 361 WOBA, 270 ISO allowed to them this season with a pretty big fly ball rate. So he's going to have to worry about like Jake Bauers. But like the other guys, like the other lefties that are kind of projecting this lineup, the Kiermaiers, the Smiths, and the Wendels, not a lot of power. So I'm not necessarily worried about those guys. And if he throws that slider, which he's been throwing a decent amount, and getting a lot of whiffs, like a whole lot of whiffs with that slider, like I think he could be in line for a pretty good night.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's not a hot night there in Minnesota. You mentioned Bowers, though. He's my one-off interest from this game. He's shown some power with 200 ISO against righties, and like you said, Odorizzi, has been allowing a lot of fly balls and hard contact to left-handers, and he's been basically the only one who's showed any type of potential to go yard from the left side this year.
Yeah.
So, did you have anyone interested in the Minnesota side, or were you off?
Dozier, who's been ridiculous, and that'd be about it. But I think I'd rather get a couple of other guys like a little bit cheaper. But I mean, Dozier on DraftKings is only 4,100. That's not terrible.
Yeah. Next game here, we got Cincinnati and St. Louis. Carlos Martinez versus Matt Harvey. I feel like Carlos Martinez is going to be popular too here.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it if you look at his price. Like if he was Carlos Martinez, expensive Carlos Martinez, I would be off of him. Like if he was the same price he was before like the DL stint, like the double digits and the high 9Ks, I would definitely be off of him. But in this spot against a Reds offense that is starting to strike out a little bit more over the last 7 days, and Martinez has been really good over his last 3 starts, I am completely okay with rolling him out, even in cash games, just because that price is just so cheap.
Yeah, it's he's finally flashing good form. He's been solid. He's gone 6 or more innings in each of the last 3 starts. The swinging strikes are back. The velocity looks fine. Like I don't mind him. He's also been very good against the Reds this year. Like you said, it's a price play. He's at home where he's always been significantly better as well.
Exactly.
No interest picking on him here for me. Matt Harvey, on the flip side here, has not been bad. I'm not using him, but I'm not exactly just like locking in bats against him, especially because there's really not any lefties here outside of like Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, he's the only bat I have any interest in against him.
All right, easy enough. Moving on, Chicago and San Diego. We got Tyler Chatwalk on the hill taking on Clayton Richard. I don't have interest. I don't really have a ton of interest in this game.
I'm just gonna skip over the Coors game.
Did I? Oh
Yeah.
my god, I have probably one of the most important games on the slate here. Jeez. Senzatella versus Christian Bergman. Yeah, this is obviously a game that we shouldn't skip over. Bergman has pitched in Coors many times. He is not a good pitcher. And I don't find Senzatella to be either. I love this game here, as others will too.
You know, I'm just gonna throw this out here. Christian Bergman looks like the dude at the state fair that has like one of those stands where you try to knock down the milk bottles with a baseball and they're all glued together. That's what Christian Bergman looks like.
Yeah, I could see that. Pair of overalls.
Yeah, he's got like the party in the back going on in his picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Like Midwest carnival type,
Yes, yes. That's the kind of analysis you get over at Daily Fantasy Cafe. Can we just say, just play everyone from this game and just move on?
Yeah, no kidding. Like, I love the Seattle bats against Senzatella. I know he's a ground ball guy, but there's a lot of guys that just get a lot of lift, and they're not priced all that egregiously. Like, I know Haniger is expensive, but like Kyle Seager, 4.5, really nice price tag on him. I don't hate D. Gordon. If Chris Herman's in the lineup, which I'm praying that he is, he's 3-1 on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy behind the dish. And then you have like the Ryan Healy's and the Kyle Seager you mentioned. That price is just really good on Kyle Seager. I really do like the spot for him. Seattle, I think, is going to be like the lower owned part of this game. And I really do like pairing them with a couple. Like you could pair like a Seager and a Blackman and like a Herman and like one or two other Colorado bats and have like a game stack, and it would be a pretty good way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Colorado, it's the usual suspects. You look at Bergman. I'm sure he's thrilled to be called up from the AAA and kind of gets to pitch back in Coors again. He's a guy, he's allowed a lot of production to right-handed bats in his career, 406 WOBA, but still a lot of hard contact to lefties, not a big strikeout guy. Like you said, it's everyone here.
It is literally everyone. Charlie Blackman, 529 ISO against that fastball that Bergman is throwing 41% of the time. Nolan Arenado, 677 ISO, 95% contact rate. Carlos Gonzalez, 629 WOBA, 50% hard contact rate. Trevor Story, 471 ISO, 524 WOBA. Ian Desmond, guy to keep an eye on. Not great numbers, like a 407 WOBA, only 20% hard contact, 0.043 ISO against that fastball, but he's been pretty good over the past couple weeks. I do like him if you're wanting to get like some cheaper one-off exposure.
Yeah, I'm with you. You mentioned that fastball, like even the changeup that he throws a lot too. I mean, LeMahieu, Blackman over 200 ISO, Cargo, Arenado, some of your bigger power bats against. I know the contact rates start to drop off as you get deeper in this lineup, but still monster power numbers against that changeup as well.
Yeah.
Chicago, San Diego, back again. I just don't have interest in this game.
Will Myers.
Yeah, he's been on fire.
And Chris
That's
Bryant.
an understatement. Myers has been on fire.
Yeah. Will Myers, Chris Bryant, move on.
Yeah, that's pretty much it here. LA and LA, you mentioned Walker Buehler, and it's Felix Pena on the other side of this one. Buehler's a guy who have already mismanaged in his short time in the career for the Dodgers. Dealing with a rib injury, I feel like that's a lot more tricky than some of the other injuries that pitchers can have.
Yeah, it's not something I really want to mess with as far as like using this guy. Like it's not a good injury to try to like come back from, and like you lump in the fact that it's the Dodgers and the All-Star break's right around the corner and they don't really have a reason to push this guy. And it's a combination of like, I don't know why you would use him in this spot.
Yeah, I agree here. Like it's way too hard to get him, especially at 9.5 for a guy who's probably going to go 5 innings. I don't like the fact that he should not be swinging a bat tonight. But anyone with rib injuries and they go up and take a hack, that could be it for them.
Yeah.
So not fun. I don't have interest in picking on him here either. It's a good Dodgers bullpen that's going to follow. I just don't think there's any real upside for the Angels.
You mean you don't want the white hot Cole Calhoun?
No, I do not. we had our one Calhoun night, and then that's it. I'm not going to get pushy with it.
It's probably a good idea to not test those waters again.
Pena on the other side, he's a guy who allows a lot of hard contact, but he is a guy who throws that slider quite a bit, and he's been really, really good with it. I don't know. Like, I don't exactly want to pick on him here.
Are we back to the Dodgers sucking?
Yeah, we could be.
What is it, 2 straight nights they've been like pretty big letdowns against Eric Lauer was it Lauer, and then they were okay against someone, and then Tyson Ross was like no hitting him.
Yeah, they struggle. Well, yeah, they basically struggle against Lauer, Uchesi, and then Ross.
Yeah, so we could be back to like the Dodgers sucking again.
I kind of look like their contact rate against sliders are pretty dreadful. I actually don't think Pena is the worst GPP play in the world.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going. Like, I think he could be a guy that could be in play, especially at 6,800. It's pretty cheap. He's got decent strikeout numbers. Has already done decent against his team. Gave up 2 earned runs and 5 1/3 with 8 strikeouts last time out just a few days ago. Yeah, 6,800.
Yeah, and he's not going to go deep in this game. It's hard to see him pitching past the 6th. Which at that price, I don't care with the strikeouts that he's been getting this year.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. I think if there's a one-off here that I don't mind, it would be Bellinger, 412 ISO against sliders. I know the contact rate's like 61%, but just the GPP bat.
Max Muncy, move on.
Oakland, San Francisco, Madison Bumgarner taking on Edwin Jackson. I'm not on Bumgarner here. I know he's had a couple of reasonable starts, but I just don't think that he's back. I still don't think that he's right. And this Oakland team has just been way too pesky for me lately.
Yeah, ask Lance McCullers about this Oakland team.
Yeah, no kidding.
It comes down to, and the reason why I'm not on him, you mentioned it, like strikeouts. He's not back to like where he was. He's like 19.6% strikeout rate. Still a lot of hard contact and fly balls to righties. 41.8% hard contact. This is a Oakland team with a massive like 47% hard contact rate against lefties. I'm not paying that price. I know it's Madison Bumgarner. I know he should be really good, and I know he's a big name pitcher. Not going to do it.
No, I'm with you. I'm fading here. I'm going with some of the mid-range options that have shown strikeout upside this year. I just look at this lineup like it's just I don't want to mess with it. Especially with like Chapman back in there. Once again, if third base wasn't loaded, I really like Matt Chapman. If there was high expensive options because he's 3,200 on DraftKings and mashes cutters, I'd be all over it. But it's just another name that scares me off Bumgarner.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't hate using him as like a contrarian stack, if we're being honest. Like, I think this is a lineup that could do some damage. I know it's a bad ballpark, but these guys just so much freaking hard contact, especially against like a lot of the pitches that Bumgarner's throwing. Like you mentioned that cutter, Chad Pender, 52% hard contact against it. Matt Olson, 42%. It's pretty solid. And like if you look at sinkers, which Bumgarner's throwing like 38% of the time, you have Chris Davis, Matt Olson again. A lot of hard contact.
Yeah, and I feel like Bumgarner, like he's not a huge favorite here. Like it shows that Vegas is on to what Bumgarner is at this year.
That or they're on to Edwin Jackson.
It's very true. I mean, the A's have what? They took 3 out of 4 in Houston. They've been one of the hottest teams in baseball.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Jackson. He has not been bad. The A's will just plug and play whoever, and you're probably going to be decent because they're the A's.
Yeah, and I honestly think like it comes down to, and for some reason, like I'm looking on 2 different places, and like one place shows Edwin Jackson is throwing a cutter 31% of the time, and another shows that he's not even throwing a cutter at all. He is actually throwing a cutter, and it is working for him, and it's why he's been improved compared to last year. Again, another guy in that cheaper price range, 6,100 on DraftKings. I absolutely love just paying down at pitching and stacking bats in the spot. And Edwin Jackson's just another one of those cheap options that I think you can get exposure to. And if you're playing like the late night slate, he definitely fits that bill.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. Like those games pretty important for that late night slate because I do like the Oakland stack. I still even think in that slate people won't go there.
Yeah, and like there are a couple bats that hit that cutter. Like you have Andrew McCutchen, 233 ISO, but only 69%. Nice. Contact rates, Brandon Belt's pretty low contact rate, so I could get behind some Edwin Jackson in this spot.
Yeah, I like it. Home run calls, I am kicking it off today because I don't want you to steal any of mine. Not that I think you will here, but I'm going to go Alex Bregman is my 1, and Aaron Hicks is my 2.
Neither of those guys I was going to go with. I'm going to go with Robinson Chirinos.
Like it.
And Sparkle. Get some Chris Bryant.
I like it out there. I like it a lot. Go to dailyfantasycafe.com, check out cheat sheets, Brent's pitching article, which I'm sorry you had to do today. But we make him. We force him. He can't leave that room until he's done. But
I don't leave this room anyways. There's like a lock on the door. Like I can't leave. Like I'm getting let out Saturday, and I'm very, very anxious about that.
Oh, nice. Good. Oh, it's 14th of the month. They let you out once every mid-month.
Yep.
So, yeah, they slide the food through under the door.
Yep. I sit in here and do push-ups all day long and research baseball.
Oh, man, it's like those gym guys or the people go to prison and come out jacked. Like that's how you're going to be.
Yes.
All right. Killing airtime here. Head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. We'll be back on Monday.
Good luck tonight.